The crisp autumn air nipped at John Hawk's weathered face as he peered through his rifle scope, tracking a white-tailed buck across his property. At 45, John had long ago traded the chaos of civilization for the solitude of his 500-acre sanctuary in the Black Hills of South Dakota. The former Navy SEAL had seen enough of humanity in his years of service. Now, he preferred the company of wind-whispered pines and the occasional deer that wandered into his crosshairs. Little did John know that this ordinary hunting trip would be the prelude to humanity's greatest challenge. A flicker of movement caught his eye, but it wasn't the buck. Something metallic glinted in the fading sunlight, descending rapidly from the sky. John lowered his rifle, squinting at the anomaly. It was too fast and too odd-shaped to be a drone or any aircraft he recognized. The object crash-landed in a clearing about a half-mile from his position. John's instincts, honed by years of special ops, screamed danger, but curiosity and a sense of duty he thought he'd left behind propelled him forward. As he approached the clearing, the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. The air hummed with an otherworldly energy. In the center of the impact zone lay a pod, its sleek surface unmarred by the crash. It was about the size of a small car, with no visible seams or openings. John raised his rifle, every muscle tense. "This is private property," he called out, feeling slightly foolish. If this was what he suspected, property laws were about to become very irrelevant. The pod's surface rippled, and a seam appeared. As it began to open, John's finger tightened on the trigger. He'd seen a lot in his life, but nothing could have prepared him for what emerged. A creature, easily 7 feet tall, unfolded itself from the pod. Its body was a nightmarish fusion of insect and machine, with multiple limbs ending in what looked disturbingly like weapons. Its head swiveled towards John, compound eyes gleaming with alien intelligence. For a moment, time stood still. Then, faster than John thought possible, the creature raised one of its limbs. A high-pitched whine filled the air. John's training kicked in. He dove for cover behind a fallen log just as a beam of energy scorched the earth where he'd been standing. The hunt, it seemed, had taken an unexpected turn, and humanity, unknowingly, had just become the prey. As he lay there, heart pounding, John realized that his self-imposed exile had just come to an end. Whatever this thing was, wherever it came from, he knew one thing for certain: he couldn't face it alone. For the first time in years, John Hawk would have to rejoin the world. The creature screeched, a sound that chilled John to his core. As he prepared to make a strategic retreat, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. John Hawk's boots crunched on gravel as he approached the small town of Rapid City. It had been years since he'd ventured this far from his property, but the alien encounter left him no choice. He needed to warn someone, anyone who would listen. As he neared the town limits, an eerie silence enveloped him. No cars on the roads, no people on the streets. John's hand instinctively moved to the rifle slung across his back. Suddenly the sky lit up. John looked up to see hundreds, maybe thousands, of pods similar to the one he'd encountered streaking across the atmosphere. The invasion had begun in earnest. The town erupted into chaos. People poured out of buildings, screaming and pointing at the sky. John sprinted towards the sheriff's office, dodging panicked civilians. Inside, he found Sheriff Alina Reedhawk barking orders into a radio. She spun around as John burst in, her hand flying to her sidearm. "At ease," Sheriff John said, raising his hands. "I'm John Hawk. I've seen these things up close. We need to organize a defense now." Recognition flashed in Alina's eyes. "The Hermit from the hills. What do you mean you've seen them?" Before John could answer, an explosion rocked the building. They rushed outside to see alien drones, similar to the one John encountered but smaller, swarming the town. Energy beams lanced from their limbs, setting buildings ablaze. "We need weapons, heavy ones," John shouted over the chaos. "And we need to get people to safety." Alina nodded, her initial skepticism evaporating in the face of the threat. "The National Guard Armory. It's a few blocks from here. But how do we fight these things?" John's mind raced back to his encounter. "They're tough, but not invincible. Conventional weapons should work. We just need enough firepower." As they sprinted towards the armory, John noticed something odd. The aliens weren't just destroying, they were capturing people. He watched in horror as a drone enveloped a screaming woman in some kind of glowing energy field, lifting her into the air. "They're harvesting us," he muttered grimly. They reached the armory to find it already under siege. A group of local hunters and off-duty police officers were holding off a swarm of drones with hunting rifles and pistols. John and Alina joined the fray. John's marksman skills proved lethal, each shot finding a weak point in the alien armor. But for every drone they downed, two more seemed to take its place. As they fought their way into the armory, John's mind was racing. The aliens' tactics, their technology, it all pointed to a hive mind structure. They moved with too much coordination for individual thought. Inside the armory, they quickly distributed heavier weapons. John grabbed an M4 carbine and began organizing the ragtag group of defenders. "Listen up," he shouted. "These things are strong, but they're not invincible. Aim for the joints and the eyes, and whatever you do, don't let them take you alive." As the defenders prepared to make their stand, John couldn't help but feel a grim sense of irony. He'd spent years hiding from humanity, and now he was its unlikely defender. The aliens swarmed towards the armory, their screeches filling the air. John raised his rifle, a cold determination settling over him. The real battle for Earth was about to begin, and he was damned if he was going to let these bugs win. "Let's show these overgrown insects who the real apex predators are," he growled, and opened fire. The battle for Rapid City raged for hours. John Hawk, Sheriff Alina Reed-Hawk, and their makeshift militia fought tooth and nail, turning the National Guard armory into a fortress against the alien swarm. As night fell, the continuous flash of gunfire and alien energy weapons lit up the sky. John's military experience proved invaluable. He quickly organized the defenders into efficient fire teams, maximizing their effectiveness against the relentless drone attacks. But even as they held their ground, John knew they were fighting a losing battle. "We need to get a message out," John shouted to Alina over the din of combat. "The world needs to know what we've learned." Alina nodded grimly, ducking as an energy blast sizzled overhead. "There's a secure military communication system in the basement, but we'll have to fight our way there." John assembled a small team, including a tech-savvy teenager named Mike, who had proved surprisingly adept at repurposing alien tech they'd scavenged from downed drones. They made a dash for the basement, covering each other as they went. Once there, Mike worked feverishly to establish a connection while John and Alina held off the aliens. Finally, a crackle of static, then a voice. "This is NORAD. Identify yourself." John grabbed the mic. "This is former Navy SEAL John Hawk. We are under attack by an alien force in Rapid City, South Dakota. They're harvesting humans and..." A massive explosion rocked the building, cutting off the transmission. The aliens had breached the armory. "We need to fall back," Alina yelled. But as they turned to leave, John spotted something on one of the monitors, a live feed from a military satellite. His blood ran cold. The alien invasion wasn't limited to Rapid City. All across the globe, major cities were under attack. As they fought their way back to the main group, John's mind raced. The aliens' tactics were brutal but predictable. They focused on population centers, suggesting they valued quantity over quality in their harvesting. This could be used against them. Over the next few days, as governments worldwide struggled to mount a cohesive defense, John and his growing band of survivors became a thorn in the aliens' side. They developed hit-and-run tactics, striking at alien harvesting operations and disappearing into the rugged Black Hills before retaliation could come. Word of their successes spread through underground channels. Soon, similar resistance cells began popping up worldwide. Humanity, it seemed, wasn't going down without a fight. A week into the invasion, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mike, the tech-savvy teenager, had been studying a partially intact alien drone. "I think I figured something out," he said excitedly. "Their communication system, it's not like anything we use. It's biological." John leaned in, intrigued. "Biological? How?" Mike pointed to a strange, pulsating organ within the drone's chassis. This thing acts like a combination of a brain and a radio. It receives and transmits instructions using some kind of organic quantum entanglement. That's how they coordinate so perfectly. This revelation sparked an idea in John's mind. If the aliens' communication was biological, perhaps they were vulnerable to biological warfare. He shared his thoughts with Alina and the others. "So you're saying we might be able to hack them? Turn their own biology against them?" Alina asked, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. John nodded. "Exactly, but we'll need help. Real scientists, bioengineers." As if on cue, the secure comm system crackled to life. A familiar voice came through. NORAD had received their earlier transmission and had been trying to re-establish contact. John quickly explained their discovery and their idea. There was a long pause before the voice replied, "We're sending extraction teams to your location. Mr. Hawk, your expertise in this information could be the key to turning the tide. How soon can you be ready to move?" John looked around at the tired but determined faces of his fellow survivors. They'd been through hell together, but this was bigger than just their group now. This was for all of humanity. "We're ready now," he said firmly. "Let's take the fight to them." As they prepared for extraction, John couldn't help but feel a mix of anticipation and dread. The real war was just beginning, and humanity's survival hung in the balance. But for the first time since the invasion began, they had hope. And sometimes, hope was the deadliest weapon of all. The helicopter touched down on the tarmac of a hidden military base somewhere in Colorado. John Hawk, Sheriff Alina Reed-Hawk, and Mike, the young tech prodigy, were quickly ushered into an underground facility teeming with scientists and military personnel. Dr. Penelope Kent, a renowned bioengineering expert, greeted them. "Mr. Hawk, we've been eagerly awaiting your arrival. Your discovery about the aliens' biological communication system could be the breakthrough we need." John nodded grimly. "Glad to help, Doc. But we're running out of time. These bugs are harvesting people faster than we can fight them off." Penelope led them to a secure lab where a partially intact alien drone was being studied. "We've made some progress, but we're still struggling to understand their biology. It's unlike anything we've ever seen." Mike's eyes lit up at the sight of the advanced equipment. "This is incredible. With these tools, I might be able to dig deeper into their communication organs." Over the next few days, John found himself in an unlikely role. His years of isolation had honed his observation skills, and he worked closely with the scientists, providing insights on alien behavior and tactics he'd observed in the field. Alina, meanwhile, coordinated with military strategists, helping to develop more effective combat strategies against the alien swarms based on their experiences in Rapid City. The breakthrough came on the 4th day. Mike, working alongside Dr. Kent, made a startling discovery. "It's not just communication," Mike exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "This organ, it's connected to their entire nervous system. It's how the Hive mind controls the drones." Dr. Kent nodded, her face a mix of awe and concern. "If we could find a way to interfere with this system, we could disrupt their entire invasion force," John finished, the implications dawning on him. The lab erupted into a flurry of activity. Scientists worked around the clock, attempting to develop a biological agent that could interfere with the aliens' control system. John, Alina, and Mike provided valuable input, their first-hand experience with the aliens proving crucial. As days turned into weeks, reports from around the world grew increasingly dire. Major cities had fallen, and billions had been harvested. The aliens were pushing into less populated areas, their hive ships looming ominously in the skies. Finally, after countless failed attempts, they had a breakthrough. Dr. Kent burst into the strategy room where John and Alina were planning defense tactics. "We've done it," she said, breathless with excitement. "We've developed a virus that can infiltrate their biological communication system. In theory, it should disrupt the hive mind's control over the drones." John felt a glimmer of hope, but his years of experience made him cautious. "In theory, what are the risks?" Penelope's expression turned serious. "The virus is potent and highly contagious among their species. But There's a chance it could affect humans too. We haven't had time to fully test it." A heavy silence fell over the room. The implications were clear. They had a weapon that could turn the tide of the war, but using it could pose a significant risk to humanity as well. John stood up, his decision made. "We're out of options and out of time. I'll volunteer to deliver the virus. If something goes wrong, at least the damage will be contained." Alina started to protest, but John held up his hand. "I've lived a life of isolation, Alina. Maybe this is why. One last mission to save humanity." As the base prepared for the mission, John found Mike working feverishly at a computer terminal. The young man looked up as John approached. "I think I've found a way to protect you," Mike said, his voice filled with determination. "A genetic modification that might make you resistant to the virus. It's risky, but—" John placed a hand on Mike's shoulder, a paternal gesture that surprised them both. "Do it, kid. Sometimes you have to roll the dice." As the genetic treatment was prepared, John looked out a window at the star-filled sky, now ominously dotted with alien ships. He'd spent years running from humanity, and now he was its last hope. The irony wasn't lost on him as he prepared for a mission that would either save the human race or end in spectacular failure. But for the first time in years, John Hawk felt truly alive. Humanity was about to fight back, and he would lead the charge. The stealth aircraft hummed quietly as it approached the massive alien Hive ship hovering over what was once Chicago. In the cockpit, John Hawk double-checked his equipment: the vials of virus, the delivery system, and the specially designed protective suit that incorporated Mike's genetic modifications. "Remember, Hawk," Dr. Kent's voice crackled over the comm, "the virus needs to be released as close to the ship's central nervous system as possible. Our scans suggest it's near the center of the vessel." John grunted in acknowledgement. The plan was risky: parachute onto the Hive ship, infiltrate its organic corridors, and release the virus at its heart. Simple in theory, but monumental in execution. As the aircraft neared its drop point, John stood at the open bay door. The alien ship loomed below, a nightmarish amalgamation of biology and technology. With a deep breath, he leaped into the void. His freefall was brief and silent. As he neared the ship's surface, he activated his suit's cloaking technology, another innovation born from studying the alien tech. He landed softly on the organic exterior, the material pulsing beneath his feet. Using tools reverse-engineered from alien weaponry, John cut his way inside. The ship's interior was a maze of pulsating corridors, filled with scurrying drones. His cloaking technology and the ship's biological nature helped mask his presence, but every step was fraught with danger. As he delved deeper, he encountered chambers filled with harvested humans in stasis pods. The sight steeled his resolve. This had to end, whatever the cost. Finally, after what seemed like hours of tense navigation, John reached what appeared to be the central chamber. A massive, brain-like organ pulsed in the center, surrounded by a legion of warrior drones. "I'm in position," John whispered into his comm. "Godspeed," Hawk, came the reply from base. John took a deep breath and decloaked, immediately drawing the attention of every drone in the chamber. As they charged towards him, he activated the virus delivery system. A fine mist sprayed out, quickly filling the air. The effect was almost immediate. The drones nearest to him began to twitch and spasm, their movements becoming erratic. But John's victory was short-lived. As the virus spread, he felt a searing pain in his head. Despite Mike's modifications, the virus was affecting him too. He fell to his knees, his vision blurring. Through the haze of pain, John saw something extraordinary. The drones weren't just failing, they were changing. Their eyes, once a uniform alien glow, now looked almost human. As consciousness slipped away, John realized that the virus hadn't just disrupted the hive mind, it had somehow merged it with his own consciousness, and through him, with humanity's collective will. Hours later, John awoke in a medical bay back at the Colorado base. Dr. Kent and Alina were by his side, their faces a mix of concern and awe. "What happened?" John croaked. "You did it," Alina said, her voice filled with emotion. "The virus worked, but not how we expected." Dr. Kent stepped in. The virus didn't just disrupt the hive mind. It rewrote it, merged it with human consciousness. And you, John, are somehow at the center of it all. John sat up, his head swimming with new sensations. He could feel them: every drone, every ship, the entire alien collective. But they weren't alien anymore. Somehow, incredibly, they were now an extension of humanity. "The invasion's over," Alina said, her voice filled with wonder. "The ships are retreating. It's like they're waiting for orders. Your orders, John." As the implications washed over him, John looked out the window at the sky, now clear of alien ships. Humanity had not just survived, it had evolved. The challenge now would be navigating this new reality, this merging of two species into something entirely new. For a man who had spent years in isolation, John now found himself more connected than any human had ever been. The irony wasn't lost on him as he took his first steps into a new era for humanity, an era where the stars themselves were now within reach. In the weeks following the transformation, John Hawke found himself at the center of a new world order. The merger of human consciousness with the alien hive mind had created an unprecedented situation, with John as the nexus. From the Colorado base, now a hub of global operations, John worked tirelessly to understand and control his newfound connection to the alien fleet. Dr. Kent and her team monitored him constantly, amazed by the physiological changes occurring in his brain. "It's extraordinary," Dr. Kent explained during one of their daily briefings. "Your neural pathways have reconfigured to accommodate the hive mind's collective consciousness. You're evolving, John." But with this evolution came challenges. John struggled to maintain his individuality amidst the constant flood of alien thoughts and memories. The weight of billions of alien minds threatened to overwhelm him. Alina, ever at his side, became his anchor to humanity. "Remember who you are," John, she'd say, grounding him when the alien influence became too strong. As John's control grew, so did humanity's understanding of the alien species. Through his connection, they learned the aliens called themselves the Collective. They were ancient, having consumed countless worlds in their endless expansion. But now, with human consciousness infiltrating their hive mind, the Collective was changing. The drones, once mindless workers, were developing individual thoughts. The vast knowledge of the Collective was becoming accessible to humanity, opening up technological advancements beyond their wildest dreams. However, not all of humanity embraced this new union. Resistance groups formed, fearful of the alien influence. They saw John as a threat, a potential puppet of the very beings that had nearly destroyed Earth. Tensions came to a head when an extremist group calling themselves Pure Earth launched an attack on the Colorado base. John sensed the danger through his enhanced awareness and coordinated a defense using a combination of human security forces and repurposed alien drones. As the smoke cleared from the attack, John realized the precarious position he was in. He was neither fully human nor fully alien, straddling two worlds and fully welcomed by neither. In a moment of clarity, John made a decision. "We need to go to the source," he announced to Alina and Dr. Kent. "The Collective's home world. It's the only way to fully understand what we've become and secure humanity's future." The proposal was met with mixed reactions. Some saw it as an opportunity to ensure Earth's safety, others as a foolish risk. But John was adamant. He could feel a pull, a call from deep space where the Collective's central intelligence resided. Preparations began for an unprecedented mission. A ship, a hybrid of human and alien technology, was constructed. John would lead a small team, including Alina and Dr. Kent, on a journey across the stars. As the launch day approached, John stood alone on the base's roof, gazing at the night sky. The stars no longer seemed distant and cold, but like beacons calling him home. Yet Earth, the planet he had once shunned and now fought to protect, pulled at his heart. Alina joined him, her presence a comforting reminder of his humanity. Having second thoughts, she asked softly. John shook his head. "No, just reflecting. I spent so many years trying to escape humanity, and now I'm its ambassador to the stars." Alina took his hand, a gesture that cut through the noise of the hive mind in John's head. "You're not alone in this, John. We're in it together." As they stood there, on the brink of a journey that would reshape the course of human history, John felt a sense of purpose he'd never known before. The lone wolf had become the leader of the pack, guiding humanity into a new era. The next day, as the hybrid ship rose from Earth's surface, John felt the weight of two species' hopes and fears on his shoulders. The true test of this new human-alien alliance lay ahead, in the depths of space where the collective had been born. As Earth shrank behind them, John steeled himself for the challenges to come. The journey to infiltrate the heart of the Hive had only just begun. The journey to the collective's home world took months, even with the advanced hybrid technology. During this time, John's connection to the Hive mind grew stronger, and with it, his understanding of the collective's vast history. As their ship approached the alien world, a massive construct that seemed to be equal parts planet and machine, John felt a surge of anticipation from both his human crew and the transformed collective consciousness. "This is it," he said to Alina and Dr. Kent, as the alien world filled their view screen. "The birthplace of the collective and the key to our future." Their ship docked with the central hub of the planet-sized structure. As they disembarked, they were met not with hostility, but with a sense of expectation. The drones here, more advanced than any they'd encountered, seemed to be waiting for them. John led the way, guided by the pull of the central intelligence. They traversed vast chambers filled with biotechnology beyond human comprehension. Dr. Kent was in awe, her scientific mind racing with the possibilities. Finally, they reached the core, a massive, pulsating organ that seemed to be the physical manifestation of the collective's central intelligence. As John approached, the entire structure hummed with energy. He placed his hand on the core, and suddenly his mind was flooded with the full breadth of the collective's knowledge and history. He saw the birth of the collective eons ago. It spread across the galaxy, the countless civilizations it had absorbed. But he also saw its stagnation, its loss of creativity and individuality in the pursuit of mindless expansion. In that moment of connection, John understood the true purpose of the virus and the merger with humanity. The collective had orchestrated its own evolution, recognizing in humanity the spark of individuality and innovation it had lost. With this realization, John became more than just a conduit. He became the new central intelligence of the collective, but one tempered by human empathy and creativity. As John's consciousness expanded to encompass the entire collective, he felt the change rippling across the galaxy. Harvested worlds began to transform, the drones gaining individuality while retaining their connection to the whole. Back on the ship, Alina and Dr. Kent watched in amazement as John's body seemed to glow with energy. When he finally opened his eyes, they knew they were looking at something more than human, yet deeply rooted in humanity's essence. "It's done," John said, his voice resonating with newfound power and understanding. "The collective has been reborn, with humanity as its heart." In the years that followed, the transformed collective, under John's guidance, became a force for creation rather than consumption. Earth, once on the brink of destruction, became the center of a vast, peaceful network of worlds. The technology of the collective, combined with human ingenuity, solved problems of scarcity, disease, and environmental degradation. Humanity spread to the stars not as conquerors, but as explorers and peacekeepers. John Hawke, once a lone hermit in the Dakota wilderness, now stood as the bridge between humanity and a galaxy full of wonders. The apex predator had become the guardian, ensuring that the spark of individuality and creativity would never again be lost in the vastness of the cosmos. As he stood on the observation deck of Earth's first intergalactic hub, watching ships from 100 worlds come and go, John reflected on the journey that had brought him here. He felt Alina's presence beside him, a constant reminder of his humanity amidst the cosmic consciousness he now shared. "You know," he said, turning to her with a smile, "for someone who once wanted to get away from it all, I've ended up pretty connected." Alina laughed, taking his hand. "Just promise me one thing, John. In all this vastness, don't forget to come home once in a while." John squeezed her hand, feeling the pulse of the galaxy and the warmth of human connection in equal measure. "Home," he mused, looking out at the star-filled sky. "I think we've just redefined that word for everyone." Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you loved it. Please remember to subscribe if you did like it so you can see more videos like this. And please give us a like and a comment too. I'll see you in the next one.